The LSU season is just a couple weeks away, and there's of course a lot of big news surrounding mostly one former LSU player along with other college football players as well, who potentially have a chance to come back to college football even though they were signed by NFL teams and have participated in preseason games. Mostly going to be focusing on one certain former LSU player who could come back for the 2026 season. Plus, speaking of the 2026 season, it was also announced today, as me recording this today on Friday, that College GameDay will be in Oxford for the Ole Miss LSU game, which of course will be one of, if not the biggest game of the season already in the beginning of the year for LSU. For LSU, and of course of the college football season all together, just because of everything going into that. That's of course going to be the stuff that we're going to go over in today's video for the LSU Tigers. So before we get into the video, you guys probably know as always, or if you guys are new to the BrewCrew channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell for future videos here on the channel. I do football content like this for the Saints and for LSU as well, so definitely would appreciate if you hit that subscribe button and notification bell and all that. I also do wrestling content as well, like I said before. But with that being said, we're going to focus more on some big stuff that's happening around with LSU. Now, yes, I know in my previous video when I was talking about the Saints towards the end of the video, I did mention and talk a little bit about the whole situation with Jaden Daniels and the whole number situation. But that's not what I'm going to go ahead and talk about in today's video. Sorry about that. In today's video, first to go ahead and of course say LSU of course will be playing Ole Miss later on this season at Oxford at Ole Miss, and of course no doubt about it, it's already been confirmed way before the season started that ESPN College GameDay will be featured at Oxford for the Ole Miss LSU game. Of course, no doubt about it, there's a lot of storylines going into it. It's one of the biggest games of the season, mostly because of one guy, and that of course is Lane Kiffin. Of course, it's still crazy that it's not only been almost a year, or it really will be a year probably when it gets to December, or at least close to January as well, that it will be a year since it was announced that Lane Kiffin instantly was going to be our new head coach. And the whole Lane Kiffin Ole Miss situation happened with him not being able to coach in the final few games of the playoffs for the Ole Miss Rebels, who did make the playoffs, and after a really successful season. And of course, you know there's going to be a lot of bad blood, and of course it's going to be in Oxford, which don't like that it's in Oxford again for the second year in a row, but it is what it is, because it's even better because it's at Oxford. We know that crowd is going to be hostile because they're not going to like Lane Kiffin. Nobody likes Lane Kiffin for any former team he played for. I definitely for sure believe whenever he does leave, if it's some sort of controversial leave with us, he is definitely going to be shunned from LSU as well. But he's almost been shunned or blocked out from the history of the team by fans in their mind or whatever, because of what happened to him in his tenure with their team and all that. You can just ask Tennessee. They'll definitely tell you that. But of course, it is going to be the biggest game of the season in Oxford, and it's official for College GameDay. But the main thing that I really want to talk about a good bit is, of course, the whole situation, not only just revolving around the one play that we're going on, that we are talking about. Jack Pyburn is the player that we're talking about, the former LSU player, but other players as well who have been granted what is called a TRO, which I call a TRO, which, hold on a second, or temporary restraining order, okay. A TRO, temporary restraining order of sorts, mostly, of course, which was actually a judge granting him and other players to be able to be eligible to go on and go back to LSU. Not LSU, but go back to playing college football. Going on to play college football. Now, this article that I'm mostly going to be reading off a lot is off of LouisianaSports.net by Matt Moscona. So that's the article that I'm going to kind of read off a little bit, and I'm going to talk about as well. So, firstly, to say the TRO was granted by a Louisiana judge on Wednesday on Wednesday earlier this week to 16 former college football players, which included Pyburn, but also former Ole Miss Rebels tight end Daquan Wright and defensive tackle Xavier Harris. Those players must now decide between chasing an NFL dream or pursuing heavy paychecks promised to elite college athletes. So mostly focusing on Pyburn, mostly of course in this video, mostly of course, him is if he of course could earn the 53-man roster spot, he would get paid the minimum rookie contract salary of $885,000. LSU would have to pass that to collect at least that much to convince Pyburn to spurn his NFL dream for another season. So mostly, of course, how does those roster spots become available is, of course, what he asked in this, and he kind of goes more into this. I'll probably leave a link to this article in below, but I mostly want to kind of look at Pyburn. Which mostly, of course, there's two teams probably definitely looking at Pyburn is LSU and of course Florida, since those were the two teams he actually played for. He played in 41 games and 20 starts across his 4 seasons in college with the Gators and the Tigers. He would also have an opportunity to graduate from LSU, since Pyburn lost his year's worth of credits when he transferred from Gainesville from the Florida Gators. So definitely, of course, a big opportunity there. There's also other teams that are definitely going to be looking at him as well, but the writing is on the wall for him to return to LSU, which of course is what Matt Moscona actually said in this as well. But I agree, definitely the writing on the wall for him to return. But mostly, of course, is if he makes the final roster. Mostly what he kind of goes on to say is if he does not make the final roster after the end of the final preseason game, which will be against the Jaguars for the Buccaneers, which I'll go ahead and actually read this section. The only real question that remains is whether or not Pyburn would make the Bucs roster. If Pyburn is released after next Friday's preseason finale against the Jaguars, he could theoretically be in Baton Rouge by Saturday within a week to prepare for the season opener against Clemson. He, of course, though, has a familiarity with the defensive scheme, which would make a transition from the red and silver, he has another name, I can't really read it, to the red and silver of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the purple and gold seamless. Mostly, of course, what he is meaning is that if there is a chance that he returns to LSU, or even returns to college football in general, LSU is definitely the right landing spot. Mostly, of course, if he decides to see where this goes for the rest of the preseasons, which of course this weekend is a couple preseason games. I believe there's a couple today as I'm recording, and of course next week will be the final week of the preseason games. So if he's actually not on the team or makes the final 53-man roster, you could see him possibly the next day decide to either maybe try his luck with someone else in the NFL, or maybe since he has the grant of potentially going back to college, he can make the decision to go back to college. Of course, potentially LSU could be the right choice for him because he knows the defense. He played with, of course, Blake Baker's defense for about 2 seasons when he was with the Tigers, so it's kind of really a perfect fit for him. That kind of goes on to say a little bit, should the Bucs cut Pyburn, a return to college under the Judge's TRO would also mean Pyburn will be eligible to re-enter the NFL draft in 2027. A healthy, productive season in Baton Rouge could net Pyburn more guarantees as a draft pick in 2027, a better chance of making a roster without having to look over his shoulder. Mostly, of course, meaning that there could be a better option if the Bucs just end up cutting. Well, I think this kind of goes back, but mostly, of course, not only will this helps Pyburn tremendously and also could help other players as well, because Pyburn was actually an undrafted free agent who signed with the Bucs this offseason, and mostly if he returns to college football and has a pretty productive season, which he would be helping a pretty not so low but a pretty not so low or weak defensive line room, but with him being a senior, he'll definitely probably maybe get the starting role on that defensive line. And if he has a much better productive season, he could, not saying he probably would be a first rounder, but he could definitely be a high draft pick, probably maybe in the later, maybe middle rounds, that he can finally get drafted instead of being an undrafted free agent and having to look like, of course, Matt Moscona says, looking over his shoulder of trying to eke in onto a roster spot and at least try to get playing time in the regular season for an NFL team. So that, of course, section was definitely important. He does go on to say some others. Matt Moscona goes on to say some other stuff, I believe, about Pyburn, but I mostly just wanted to talk about that certain aspect of just him being able to come back, and LSU is definitely the right choice for him. And not to say if he chooses another team over LSU, kind of would be upsetting a little bit, but it would definitely be fitting and better for him because he played under this defense, and if he does come back and only under a week to try to prepare for the opener against Clemson, I don't see potentially him becoming the instant starter, but probably over time, if they want to get him kind of more ready, probably over time later down the line, they could get him more into the starting lineup and more as the starting defensive line for games down the line, just cause so they don't have to deal. But really, if he does with any other team, he has to have a week to try to prepare and learn a new defense. So that's why LSU is probably the right pick for Pyburn to go back to if his NFL career doesn't go the way it goes. And mostly it is a decision up to him if he decides. So mostly I think it means if he wants to go ahead and just go back to LSU, he can just go back to LSU. I don't think he needs to wait if he makes the final 53-man roster, but of course we'll just have to wait and see how that looks for him and what it looks like for the team as well. But it's definitely really big news that of course came out earlier this week that I was pretty shocked to see. And of course it's not only just him, it's a lot of other players that are being granted this opportunity, which honestly, just overall, I think it's an interesting thing to see because honestly enough, it is kind of a big thing and kind of a helpful thing for most players like Pyburn who were undrafted free agents and definitely could have been higher draft, or players who could have been drafted in the NFL draft but not be undrafted. Give them a chance, especially these certain players who got this treatment like Pyburn, to get a chance to go back, play college, and maybe now actually be on some team's watch list or on their watch list or whatever, and scouts and recruits see them for how they are. And also it does help because they've already been through training camps and they've already been through preseason games, and they're still eligible to still get drafted, and I believe are still eligible to at least still sign with the team if they don't get drafted again, which will suck definitely, but it is still a new chapter, and it's kind of I don't know what kind of resurgence of their potential of their career, especially for Pyburn, who I believe was a pretty solid player for the team, especially this last season for the defense. So I definitely would look forward to him returning for this defense, which of course, again, he knows this defense very well with Coach Baker and the rest of this defense. So definitely would like to potentially see that if that does happen. But like I said before, and like I continue to say, we'll just have to wait and see what his decision is and what the decisions are for the teams as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm going to go ahead and end off here. I know there wasn't a lot to really talk about with LSU, and really, of course, me trying to do these LSU videos, especially during the summer before the season starts, kind of hard to try to find something going on. And I know, of course, there's a lot of stuff going on with LSU, especially with the Jane Daniels situation a little bit, which I've mentioned a little bit in my previous video when I went over with the Saints. And definitely go check that out. The video will pop up at the end of this one, so if you guys want to go check out that video, definitely go check it out. If you guys want to go check out the article that I sort of read off by Matt Moscona, read more into about it and what Matt Moscona went over more in depth of what I was mentioning and what I was reading off of, definitely go check it out. I'll leave a link in the description below if you guys want to go check it out. And so yeah, so if you guys made it all the way to this point of the video, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, you guys know what to do. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell for future upcoming videos here in the BrewCrew channel, and let me know y'all's thoughts on this whole situation, not only with the Jack Pyburn thing, but with the players being granted an opportunity to go back to college even though they are on an NFL team, and if they don't make a roster, they have a choice to potentially go back to college and play season get themselves a second chance of sort of. So let me know y'all's thoughts in the comments. And again, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell and all that, and go check out the link. Go check out the article as well. Link again in the description below. And with that being said, let's go ahead and end off this video. Hope you guys have an amazing, blessed day. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.